Welcome to the Casual Author Podcast. I'm Dan, sci-fi and fantasy author. Like you, I've got a lot on my plate. What with many children, a full-time job, a homestead, and loads of other responsibilities. I'm here to bring you inspiration, positivity, and community around having a busy life and still wanting to chase that author dream, even if you have to take a casual approach. For more information about the podcast, me, or my books, head to thecasualauthor.com. Let's get started. Hey there, it's Dan Kenner with episode number 130 of The Casual Author. Today is Monday, August 5th, 2024, as I record this. And today we're talking to Jen Carr about how to scale your business with certain technologies. So we talk a little bit about where she started with her business and how she's leveraging different technologies and different scheduling to scale her business up, as well as how she now works with a virtual assistant. So something that I have not had the opportunity to have, but I know a lot of people leverage virtual assistants to scale their businesses even better. So I think you'll enjoy that conversation. Jen is a very positive person. And there's just a lot that I've learned about how I can help scale my business from where I am today. So I think you'll enjoy that. You want to stick around for it. All right, so in terms of homestead updates this week, once again, not a lot. I feel like most things are moving forward as expected. As I said before last week, we did sell the last of the remaining goat babies, so we are left with just the adults and, of course, our cow Ginger, who is set to have her baby in the next week and a half, really. She could have her baby next week. Hopefully she does, because that is the end of my paternity leave. And while my job is relatively flexible, they would probably be okay if I had to go out and assist a cow birth in the middle of the day. Still, it would be nice not to have to figure out our new shuffle of a schedule in the midst of getting back to work after a paternity leave. So we'll see what actually happens, but she's getting quite large. Her belly just looks humongous. Now, keep in mind, we don't have any experience with cows having babies. But, the goats, they get decently large, but goat babies are tiny. They're very small compared to what we've heard a calf is going to be. So that should be a new experience. But in preparation for the calf coming, we have been working on the stanchion. So the stanchion is pretty much the stand where the cow will stand when you milk her. So it just has some protective measures so she doesn't stomp around. It makes it so she stays in place. Now, Ginger, we've heard, is a very good milker. They said they would go out and milk her in the field and she would just stand still. So that would be great if it were true. Still, just in case, we're building a stanchion, essentially just like a wood platform with some frames. And then there's these two pieces of wood vertically that she puts her head through, and they just close softly over her neck. Not tight at all, because their skull bones are bigger than their neck, so she can't pull her head back and escape. So that's how it works. Making good progress on it. Definitely was more complicated than I expected it to be, but it's been fun to build. The kids have been going out with me and helping me build that. Additionally, we are planning on separating mom and the baby from day one. I know that sounds horrible, but there's a reason for it. We thought about calf sharing previously, which is essentially you let the calf have the milk. Of course, the calf has all the milk at first for a couple weeks until they grow, and then you can separate them at night and then start milking her in the morning. So essentially, the calf gets the milk during the day and she gets it during the night. So the reason we decided not to do that is because apparently cows are very dramatic. This is something I didn't know about. Goats, when you separate them for the night, like they cry a little bit, but usually by the second night, they're fine. Like they're like, oh, okay, this is the way it is. Whatever, we're over it. Apparently cows will cry for months and months and months, and they will never give it up. And that sounds horrible. So they will be so upset if we separate them, because she will cry, the mom, and the baby will cry, and it will just never end. So everyone said, if you're planning on calf sharing, just be prepared for the noise and make sure you're not close to any neighbors. Now, we are actually pretty close to some neighbors. We're in a place where we can have cows. Like, we're not like on top of each other, but still, we don't want our neighbors hating us because the calf and the mom are yelling at each other. By separating them from day one, they don't make that same like emotional bond. And so the calf will still get the milk. We'll just have to milk her, put it in bottles, and then feed the bottle to the calf. So that's going to make the most sense for us, just given our situation. It does mean that we're going to have to figure out what to do with the milk a lot more quickly, because when you have the cow just in there, they tend to overeat. because it's just available. The calf will just keep eating, keep eating, keep eating. But when you have to make their bottle and feed it to them, they can get the measured the exact amount that they need. So yeah, we'll have to figure out what to do with the extra milk. Still, I think it'll go well. We just have to figure out the schedule for bottling up the milk and going out and feeding the calf. So on the bright side, the calf will love us because we will be its mom by all intents and purposes. So should be fascinating. Other than that, yeah, just plugging along, getting the fields watered, and then I did have to move the fence. We have some electric fencing. Ginger's been going out. Ginger's the cow, in case you haven't gathered that. She goes out and grazes our land, which is great. It's awesome to see her go out there, and we're actually using our property for what it's meant to be. We weren't sure we'd ever be able to get a cow out there. She loves it though, and had to move. It's like around a 600-foot stretch that where it's long and skinny. We have to move the fence every few weeks, and today was the day I had to move it, and it was nice and toasty, roasty toasty. The kids helped me for a little while, but then they got hot and decided it was not for them, which is fine. I appreciate the help that they gave me. I'm not going to make them do something in the heat if they don't feel up to it. At least not until they're a little bit older. So, okay, in other news, in author news, I am back to working on the draft of Dwarf Blooded. I did just dabble in it a little bit last week until I'm taking another redirect because it is the beginning of August, which means it's time to do another short story for writers of the future. I like to write it the month before, give myself a few weeks to let it sit, and then come back and edit it before submitting it at the end of the quarter. So I have an idea. It's a little bit more of a fleshed out idea than ever before. I doubt I'll follow whatever plan. It's all in my head. Keep in mind that when I say fleshed out, I mean it's just in my head. We'll see if I actually follow what I've thought about in my mind or if I'll take a completely different direction. With my pantsing brain, you never know. It could go anywhere. But I'm excited to get into it. And then once I'm done writing that, it'll take probably 6 or 7 days, depending on how many words I can get down per day. And then I'll go back to writing Dragon Blooded, or excuse me, Dwarf Blooded. Dragon Blooded is off to the copy editor just today, which means in about 3 to 4 weeks, I will get the final copy edited version and it will be ready to format and publish by the end of September. So doing really well on the timelines. I feel like I've got the cover nailed down. It looks great. Now that it's with the copy editor, I can just sit back and just let her do her magic on it. But then ARC readers, I'll be sending that out to my advanced readers probably at the beginning of September. It'll give them 2 to 3 weeks to read through that. That's a pretty easy read. I think most of the people will be able to get through it pretty quickly, but it's nice. It feels good to get to the publishing stage again because it feels like I haven't been there in so long. December of last year was the last books I've published, and then things, based on various things, life situations, baby being born, it's kind of taken a slow roll. But hopefully, now that I'm getting back into the swing of things, I can get back to publishing a little bit more frequently. But we'll have to see. All right. In other news related to authoring, the August Q&A session for the Casual Author podcast is now live on Patreon. So once again, if you have a couple dollars per month and you want to help support the show, you can go to patreon.com/thecasualauthor. Once again, it's just, a couple dollars, a cup of coffee per month if you want to help out. But you do get an extra Q&A session where I go through some of the most common questions I get. And if you want to submit questions for me to answer, you can do so. Send it to me via email at dan@thecasualauthor.com or just message me on social media apps, and I will happily answer more in-depth questions about anything related to our homestead, my family, my authoring, my processes, and whatnot. So in this session, I talk a little bit about my writing process. So what does my discovery process writing look like? That was a little bit backwards. What does my discovery writing process look like? Why did I decide to go into independent publishing? I've dabbled in these explanations a little bit on the podcast, but I haven't gone in depth. And then tips for getting into writing sessions. Talk a little bit about social media and why I am not on social media as vigorously as I used to. And then I talk a little bit about my co-authoring experience and whether or not I would do that again. So yeah, if you want to join the Patreon, you can get access to that Q&A session. But I believe that's everything for updates this week. So we can go ahead and shift over to the interview with Jen. Hey, Jen, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing very, very well. I'm really excited to pick your brain on certain topics that, like AI that people may not like listening to, but they'll be great. I don't know that I have had a lot of romance authors on my podcast, so should be interesting to learn more about that as well. So before we get into the fun stuff, how long have you been writing and publishing?
Writing, I've been doing forever. I was always a writer. There was always a journal, a diary, or bad poetry, whatever. There was always something being written. Publishing, I published my first book in 2022. And so, like, I started writing it in 2021 and finally decided, okay, this is actually a book. And so we published in 2022. And my fourth book comes out in October. So,
Nice, very cool. So
mhm.
what shifted? You've been writing for so long. What made you decide? Was there like a decision point that changed that made you actually want to get to the publishing part?
It's really funny. I had a dream one night. I had a dream
Okay.
and I woke up from that dream and I thought, I wonder how that ended. Like it just ended and I didn't know the ending. And so I started writing it out. I thought I need to kind of work through this because it stuck with me. And so I started writing, and when I had probably what was equivalent to about 4 chapters, I said, "Hey honey, I think I'm going to write a book." And he was like, "Great idea, go for it." And so I started writing, and the next thing you know, I had this book. Like it was a whole book. And I thought, what do you do with this now? And so I started kind of looking into how do you publish a book? And Google was my friend for a really long time. And I found an editor. That was kind of like the first step. Everybody said, find an editor. And I said, okay. So I paid way too much for an editor and had it
Hmm.
edited. But she taught me so much about how to write a book and how to make it a better book because I didn't really have that experience when it came to writing stories. Like I would write kind of stream of consciousness. And so I was like, all right. And so she helped me so much. And next thing you know, I was like, okay, now what happened to those characters? I need to follow up with those characters. And so I did. And I wrote another book. And then it just kind of spiraled out of control from there.
Yeah, I mean that's sounds like a fun experience though to kind of get sucked into it in that way, and it sounds like you haven't stopped since then.
Yeah, no, it's been I love it. I had no idea that writing books was something that you could do as a career and not just like I just assumed it was something that somebody handpicked and said you should write a book and then publish their book and like I didn't know how all of that worked. And so it was like one of those you're going to be a rock star, that's a one in a million chance. You're going to be an athlete, that's a one in a million chance. You're going to be an author, one in a million chance. I didn't know it was something you could just do one day. And so I started doing it and I thought, you know what? Is it easy? No. Would I keep doing it? Absolutely. And so technically, I've written 7 books, but we're publishing them slowly because, I mean, it's expensive.
Well, I mean, and the other great thing, you're self-published, right? I believe
I
you
am.
said.
Hmm.
That's the other great thing is timelines are subjective when
Yeah.
when you can make those decisions yourself, and that's great. That's the one thing that works for me as well is not having deadlines set necessarily. I know people here and they're like cringing, like, no, you have to have deadlines, otherwise you don't get things done. I get things done better if I don't have deadlines, coincidentally.
I will I will give
So
myself deadlines, right? Like I will kind of if
sure,
I need
yeah.
it, I need something to work toward,
Hmm.
but they're very fluid when I start feeling too much pressure, or I can move them up even and say, hey, I'm done early. That is one of the beauties. And one of the reasons that I go back and forth all the time, thinking traditional is the way to go. And then I start finding my comfort zone in this self-published world. And I'm like, why would I ever choose somebody else's timeline or, rules or instructions when I can make them myself?
I think, yeah, for me, it's a control issue.
Yes.
And now I know for sure because I have been through the publishing process in a traditional like fashion. It's not technically with a traditional publisher. I did it's like a small indie press, but
Mm.
co-authored a trilogy. They have all the rights to the books, and it actually frustrates the heck out of me. I'm
Yes.
like, I want to, I have my own store that I set up to sell direct, and I can't have those books. It's like that's frustrating to me. I put all that work into those books, and I can't do anything with them.
And
So.
it's scary. Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
had a conversation with a fellow a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about how he's been through 4 traditional publishing experiences because either the publisher went out of business, the owner of the publishing house got sick and couldn't continue, or they died. Like there were multiple experiences he had where like but he had to fight to get his rights because
Hmm.
all of those things had happened and there were no contingency plans. And I thought, never, never,
Yeah,
never.
it's definitely. any case, this is once again not a slandering podcast of traditionally
Nope.
published. I have authors that are traditionally published and they love
Yeah,
the experience. There's lots of
absolutely.
different experiences, but it's just not for me. I like that
Me
control.
neither. Yep.
I need access and to do what I want with what I have. So
Absolutely.
that's
Well, and I
always
also
fun.
think that a lot of times we get this idea in our head that only successful authors are traditionally published authors. And, we see but that's because they have people pushing them forward. They pay people to push them to the forefront, right? Like, and we're having to do all the hard work or the harder work, but they're in the trenches as much as we are. We just don't see it, right? We're seeing it from a different angle.
Well, and the other thing to keep in mind is success is also, dependent on the person. So one
Yes.
person's success might not look successful to someone else. But
Yeah.
if you take a comparison, I don't know the metrics on this, but I'd be
Yeah.
curious to look at the percentage of successful indie authors versus the percentage of traditionally
Mm,
published authors that are successful.
hmm.
My guess is it's probably about the same. Like
I
there's
would agree.
so many on both sides that aren't successful.
Hmm.
And, traditionally published books they don't always go crazy. Some do,
Yeah.
but not all of them do. So it's just
Oh,
interesting.
yeah.
It's this kind of stigma that people have
It is.
created around publishing. Still, I like self-publishing and I'm enjoying it. Sounds like you are as well.
Oh, yeah.
But a big piece of this is creating and building a community around
Yes.
not only authoring, but also your books. And so I want to talk a little bit
Mm.
about that because
Okay.
it's something you said you're passionate about. Um, so how are you going about creating this community that supports you and your book, your business, really?
So yeah, I started a podcast because everybody's doing it. You may as well jump on the
It's true.
bandwagon. But not long, right? Welcome to the club. Not long after my first book was published, I thought I have all of these questions, right? I have so many questions, and I need to find these resources to help me answer these questions. And so I started asking people for help and advice, and I thought, you know what? This would benefit more than just me if. And so I started a podcast. It's called Connected Conversations for Creatives, where I literally wanted to provide resources, right? Like it's fun to do author interviews. I love it. It's a great way for authors to get out there and talk about their work and to just kind of promote, especially indie authors. It's just, I love that part of the platform. But I also love that, I've had on my entertainment lawyer and I've had on a doctor in neuroscience, basically, who came on and talked about how reading and creativity matter. And they've all written books and that kind of thing, and it's fun. But it's a community that I started because now I still like my book cover designer for my first two books is I met her through my podcast
Cool.
and just networking and being able to create that kind of community has been really fun and exciting. And then I met a couple of other authors, Hiram Hawks and J.E. Jack, and we started our own podcast. And so now I'm hosting two podcasts, and we've kind of just built our community over there as well. So I think it's been quite the experience forming multiple communities. But the catch there is you have to be genuinely desiring connection. And I think that's where a lot of people fail is that they're looking for somebody to promote them or to make them feel good about their work when the goal is to have actual community and connection. And so um, that's why I started my podcast, and how I went and started my communities was through that kind of, and then social media, which we can talk about or not because, meh,
Oh,
but yeah.
social media. Oh, we'll get to it. We'll get there.
Okay.
I was actually going to ask because, community can take a lot of different forms. I agree with you though.
Hmm.
The connection piece, that is so important because
Hmm.
people are more likely to be interested in the writing of an author if they feel like they know that author, if they know,
Yeah.
that person's thoughts, opinions on things, their emotions around things. And you don't think about that, right? You can go to a bookstore, pick a random book off a shelf. It won't have as much meaning as if you know that person, you see their community wherever that is. But the one thing that I know a lot of people struggle with is knowing platform wise, like
Mm.
where is the best place to have said community? Because there's like dozens of different popular options. So for you, what have you found works for you from a platform standpoint?
Oh, thinking about social media and stuff, that to me is literally just a screen. Like it's not the
Yeah,
connection. You can
true.
have engagement on your post. You can, I put out questions of the day or quotes or whatever, and people engage. And I try to respond as much as I can, but it's not genuine community. We're not communing. We're not actually
Hmm.
investing in one another. Through the podcast, because I have met people, we do keep in touch through emails and stuff like that. It's like it is literally a one-on-one. But then we have our little Discord community. I like to have those. I have several different communities for like my ARC team for my series like that I'm working on. So I have a team of that's about 17 of us in there that we just all we talk about is my work, and that sounds kind of weird and selfish, but the goal is they've connected with me, they've connected with my books. And so, we're all this team that want to see these books successful. And so, we have conversations sometimes about just books in general. But I think it's just a matter of that's my favorite because you can just go over on Discord and start having these conversations. But social media, not my favorite. So yeah.
So anybody listening who loves social media, two of the wrong people to be listening to on social media. No, I think there's a place for social media.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I think there's a lot of people who are very successful at it, and I have definitely all negative feelings I have towards social media come from myself, not
Yeah.
necessarily from the platforms themselves. But I agree with the connection piece. I struggle to connect with people through social media because it feels disingenuous most of the time.
Yes.
I even find
Mhm.
myself slipping into that disingenuous place of
Mhm.
I don't care enough about this. It's not I don't care if it's not that I don't care about the people. It's just I don't care about
Right.
this platform. And any comment I leave is not genuine from me. Not
Yeah.
because I don't want to be genuine. It's just this is not the right method for me to deliver this. I love podcasts. I love listening to, I love
Yeah.
commenting on podcasts are my jam, which is why I started one as well. But social media, short form content, I struggle with it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's not real. Like, right.
hmm
When I'm on social, when you see me on TikTok, that's part of me. That's
hmm
not all of me. You're not getting me on the good days and the bad days. You're only getting me on my best days, like,
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We can only have to get into that. This
yeah.
idea that because I think it can go both ways. This idea that you have to be perfect all the time, or you have to be dramatic to get attention type of thing, which, it's
Right.
not always true on either end. Everyone is so complex. Yeah, I agree. So
Yeah.
social media is not my favorite, but Discord, I want to talk a little bit about that because some people listening might be like, what is that? I only know of Discord from my gaming situation because historically I have joined Discords for like group chatting or
Yeah.
audio calls and whatnot. So what is Discord and how do you use it? I mean, you mentioned talking about your books, but how do you use it regularly?
Well, like I said, I have multiple groups on Discord. And so I have one that is, we call it the Right Stuff, WRITE, and that's
Nice.
just authors hanging out and we share memes or writing ideas, inspirations. We collaborate. Sometimes we have like one of our mutual friends, he always has a book idea in his head. And so he's constantly
Hmm.
saying, what about this idea? What about this idea? What about this idea? And so I'm like,
Constantly.
those are great. Those are fantastic, but it's just ways to like validate and just to hang out. We have one of our friends, author friends, is going through the loss of a parent right now. And so,
Hmm.
we've been there, it's like, hey, we're here for you. It's just a way to actually make these genuine and real connections. And I've never met any of them in real life, right? Like it's only been through the screen that we've met. But there's this genuine thread of, I know what you're going through, you know what I'm going through, and it kind of just unites the whole platform together. So literally it's like channels, right? I have that channel, I have a channel for my book series, I have a channel for my Thursday night podcast. And so there's just a bunch of different groups, that according to the needs that I have are the ones that I will interact with and that kind of thing. And so do I have my favorites? Yeah, probably. Am I going to say them out loud? No, I'm not. But that's
Secret. Don't make anyone feel
yeah.
bad.
If you join the group, you'll know. No. If you're lucky. But yeah, no, I love it. It's like old school chat rooms almost, and honestly,
That's
but you
true. It
control who's
is.
in it, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm dating myself, but
MSN, or was it called AOL? That's what I was looking
AOL.
for. Yep, AOL. Yeah, I can still hear the notification things of people
Oh
logging
man, it's
on.
good stuff. Or ICQ, anyway, yeah, that was it's
But
good
no, I
stuff.
think
Good
yeah,
stuff.
that when you don't have the world watching you, and so this is a comment on Discord. When you don't have the world watching you, it's so much easier to be more genuine
Yeah.
because you don't have this feeling that oh, someone's watching this, they're going to get some type of impression from it because it's just more of a small, tight-knit
Oh
community.
yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, Discord, it's just like a chat room, like you said, very, very fun. So my question for you is, how do you make time for it all, right? Because you, even though you dislike social media to some degree, you're still on it. You're still posting some things every once in a while. Do you schedule your days out to make time for all these? Do you have specific days where you do certain things? Because I can't always keep track of everything where I am.
So I'm going to reveal my secret.
Oh
I
boy.
hired a virtual assistant.
That's awesome. That's great.
It is awesome. Now, we created a content planner where she's like, all right, what do you want to happen this month? And I'm like, these are the things that are happening this month. I give her bullet points and she's like, I'll create the posts for that. And I will go through, I will make sure everything sounds exactly the way I want it to sound. All I have to do is proofread. She goes through and schedules everything every week.
Very
She
cool.
will Yeah, I love it. It's an investment. I make sacrifices elsewhere so that I can afford it. It's cheap-ish, but not free. And
Right.
so, we're learning. She's new at it, so I, got the guinea pig discount basically. And so I'm not sad about
Love the
it.
guinea pig discount.
I'm telling you, I'm like, yes, let's work together and see how this goes. And we're like 3 months into it. Because when I record my podcast, it's bulk recording the whole month of May and even into June. I was recording 2 to 3 times, so a couple days, 4 times a day to get all of my podcasts recorded for the year. And so I was like, I can do nothing else in the month of May. And because I tried it in October with my the season before, and I was like, I can't do this. And so she came in and she was like, boom, done. And I was like, it was a godsend. Like it was fantastic. And I would not do it any other way. And I hope that I can continue to afford her. But all she does is Facebook and Instagram. Everything else is me. So if you see me anywhere else, it really is me. As far as the other two, I try to comment and react when I see engagement, but it's not always me.
There's nothing to be sheepish about on that front. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, virtual assistant, outsourcing any work that you, struggle with or don't have time for, there's nothing wrong with that if you can make it work
Yeah.
financially. And,
Right.
definitely not something to snuff at or be embarrassed by. It's really amazing. I think of there's lots of very successful authors, indie and traditional, who outsource things, right? They have virtual
Right.
assistants, and that's a wonderful option if you can.
Oh
If
yeah.
you can't, I think really what it comes down to is um, how do I say this? Aggressively prioritizing and just
Yes.
being honest about what is really, and that's part of the reason I've kind of slipped away from TikTok is because I recognized with my limited time, that's not benefiting me personally. It's benefiting other
Yeah.
people, but just me, it's not.
Right.
So I would rather pour that into like the podcast, which is what I'm doing. I spend more
Right.
time on it. I spend more time recording and taking care of that. So
Yeah.
until you get to a point where you can outsource where possible. So I think that's awesome.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and the only reason that I kind of cringe is because it goes back to that feeling disingenuous, right?
Oh,
Like if
sure.
if
Yeah.
somebody's commenting on something I've posted, I feel obligated to make it known that I did have a final say in this post and I do care that you liked it or commented or whatever.
Hmm.
Just know that it's sometimes hard because there is a lot of prioritizing that has to go on. And I think that's one of the things that especially new authors need to understand is that you cannot do it all, especially in the beginning. You need to work on your work, focus on your writing, make sure that you are writing the best book you can. Um, don't try to curate the best Facebook or Instagram
Hmm.
right out the gate. You can't do it all.
Well, I mean, the other issue with platforms like that is they're constantly changing. So I feel like the
Yes.
moment you understand algorithms using
Yep.
inverted commas, quotation marks, they change. You can
Yeah.
have it one month and then the next month it's completely different. And some people love the thrill of chasing that, understanding it is like a puzzle for them. And I think that's awesome. I
Yep.
don't like that.
Me neither.
So I would rather do something that's going to be a little more constant, like creating a
Yeah.
Discord community, which you can kind
Yep.
of keep pretty regular for the most part, or having an email list, which should be relatively standard because it's
Yeah.
your list that you can carry around with you. So
Oh,
it's
for
just
sure.
different.
Oh yeah. Newsletter is another one that I haven't quite like I have one. It goes out on the first of every month. Am I having the most success in response to it? No, but I do it anyway because you just never know. But that is not one of my favorite things to do either. But that is all me.
I
That may
do
be why
by
I don't love it. I don't know.
I do bi-weekly. I was doing it weekly for a time, but
Ooh,
scaled back to bi-weekly, maybe scale back to monthly. I don't know. It's hard to say for sure. But
yeah.
yeah, I've had mixed experiences with it. I suspect that I'm not approaching it the right way, but we don't have to get into those details. I do. People don't care what's my
Yeah.
problem with my list. If you want to see what the problem is, join it, and then you
Right.
can see. No, this
Fantastic.
no
You can
promotional
find that
content.
link right here.
Yeah, link in the bio. No, I think another thing that a lot of people, and this is going to be a pretty sensitive topic for a lot of people, but in terms of saving time, maybe you can't afford a virtual assistant. I can't personally. Maybe someday I can. But another way that you can save yourself time and work is using AI, which I know a lot of people are like, don't talk about this, but it's reality. I
Yes.
happen to be AI positive.
Yes.
You were just saying earlier that sounds like a disease. I mean, I generally approach it with a positive
Mhm.
perspective, and some people don't, and that's fine. But for you, I want to talk a little bit about AI.
Yeah.
Where does it sit with you in your processes? How does it save you time?
It saves me so much time. Literally, I'm looking if like right
You have a
here, this is my
list.
list. Yeah, like I sent my little chat GPT friend, I sent him this nice little message that said, hey, I have these guests that were on my podcast. I need to have them edited by this many days before the air date. These are the air dates. I need to send an email this many days before the air date. And so it made me this whole list of when I should edit the podcasts, in order to not have to do them all at once, when I should send them an email letting them know that here's your media files for the podcast that airs on this date. And all of these, like, I didn't have to sit with my calendar and figure out how many days before and all of this stuff. Like, he did it for me. When you've got 52 podcast episodes, you kind of need somebody to tell you when to do all those things. And so he did. It did. But anyway, yeah,
You can
I love
decide
it.
he, she, it.
That's right. It's yours. I
It's
named mine
yours.
Frank. I named mine Frank because he's always very frank with
I
me
love
when I
that.
ask him questions. And so, but I mean, honestly, like it works for me and it is a tool. And I think that's something that we get so worked up about is that AI is going to replace the creative. It can't. Have you
Mm-mm,
ever read AI's work? It
mm-mm.
cannot. Like, it does not replace human element, period. It can't. But it is such a great tool that can help you be more productive. It can help you be a better writer, because it can tell you how not to write. There's just so many things about it that I am obviously AI positive and will say that till the end of time. Now, when they come back to take over the world, I might feel differently, but I have always said please and thank you to my AI friends. So
Until
maybe I'll be
then,
spared, right?
just prepare your weaponry and use it cautiously. No, I think
That's right.
the perspective, and I didn't gain this perspective, and I've been listening to the Creative Pen for a long time now, and Joanna Penn has always been AI positive. Um, and I think where people kind of miss out is because they're scared of it, they're missing the opportunity to take advantage of, using it to do things that they don't want to do. When I really sat down and thought, what do I struggle with? Like from beginning
Mhm.
to end, from the writing process to the marketing to the content creation, where do I just like feel that gut wrenching, I hate this. I don't want to do
Yeah.
this. And then can I apply AI? And the answer is yes, a lot of the time.
Mhm.
For
Mhm.
me, and we've talked about this a little bit before we started recording, I like the creative process. I can
Yeah.
write, I can create. I don't need help with ideas. I don't need AI to tell me anything. I can write it. Once I get to editing, I want to pull my hair out.
Mhm.
But, people don't realize when they hear AI, they think, oh, stealing, doing
Right.
all the work for you. You use AI for editing. Pro Writing Aid is AI,
Mhm.
and it
Yep.
reads your work and tells you where you're missing and compares it to other work and says, like, based on industry standard, you're using this word too much, or you've used this mnemonic phrase or this literary
Mhm.
device too much, let's change it. And it's just helpful because you're not sensitive to those things. You're in your head all the time. um and that takes away that stress of, I don't want to do that, or I don't know where to start because I feel overwhelmed. Well, let this do some of that work for you.
Yeah.
I see nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, you have to review it all anyway, because like you said, it spits out garbage sometimes. No
Oh,
offense, Frank,
100%.
but
Yeah. Sorry, Frank, you are my favorite right now. But here's the thing, like, those things that you don't want to do, the social media posts, by all means, tell it, hey, I need a social media post for every day of this month, that about this topic, or this week if you have like a weekly topic, or give me 30 different social media posts that I can work with, whatever. Tell it the voice you want it. I always tell Frank, I'm like, and I need this written in a 40-year-old woman's voice, American woman's voice. Like I need it to
Hmm.
sound as close to me as possible so that I can go through and make it sound even I'm not doing as much work on the far end of things. But make it work for you. Make your social media calendar. So all you have to do is go in and schedule it. I mean, it's not going to take over the world. It's really not. And it's here to stay. So you may as well learn to use it.
Hmm. Agreed. I agree. Yeah, I think people who are
Mhm.
spurning against it, pushing against it, just like it's almost in vain. No offense. This
Yeah,
sounded
it is.
unnecessarily religious,
Mhm.
but what I mean is just like it you can't get away from it. And I think it's
Mhm.
easier to recognize how can I prevent this from ruining my career and instead
Mhm.
shift it so that it is
Yeah.
helping, in
Yeah.
whatever way that I can. Not that I think it's going to ruin people's careers, but
Well,
it's
I
just
think it has potential. I do think
yeah,
it has
sure.
potential because there are people who have tried to write entire books using
True.
AI,
That's
and don't
silly.
do it.
Yeah,
Don't do it.
very silly to try to do that. Plus, it almost sounds more stressful
Oh
to
yeah.
have to edit an
To do
entire
extra
ugly
work.
book. Yeah, you're doing way
Mhm.
extra work. Just write it yourself, and
Yep.
then it's going to be
Write it.
easier.
Yes.
But one thing for me, and this is just some ideas for people who are also struggling with marketing like myself, I'm a pantser. I don't pre-think my books most of the time. It goes where it goes, and then I edit it later. But, people will ask me, well, what are comparable books to yours? I don't know. I didn't have any preconceived books before I wrote this book. I wasn't like, I want to write a book that's like this other book, or I like this book, but I didn't like the way it went. I'm going to write my own. I just write a story. And so I'm
Mhm.
left wanting in terms of comparable books because I don't
Mhm.
have any. I put my trilogy into ChatGPT, we can call him Frank, and said, can you give me some books that are similar to this? And it spit out 20 books, and like
Yep.
15 of them I'm like, I never would have seen that. But it gives you exactly how it's compared to them. Like it has these same themes or these same character development. I was just like, oh yeah, that's totally true. I never would have seen that until it told me these are comparable books. And some of them I have read, some of them I haven't. But I'm just like, yeah, I can see now how they're related now that you showed me. So
Now, did you put your entire
fascinating.
manuscript
Oh,
into
I did.
ChatGPT?
Yes,
Yeah,
I know.
I have done it too. I'm like, hey,
I don't
because I
care.
did the same thing for the same with the same question in mind was,
Yep.
hey, I need comps. I need to know, because
Hmm.
what am I gonna? And it's like, oh, if you like the Notebook, you'll like this book. And I was like, oh, thank you very much, Nicholas Sparks. I
Yes.
just got compared
It's
to
like a
Nicholas
pat on the
Sparks.
back. It makes me feel good.
I
Uh,
know. Thank
yeah,
you.
actually, it compared my books to Mistborn, the Mistborn trilogy, and I was just like, okay, I see that,
Score.
and also thank you. That's great.
Right?
But yeah, a lot of people who are concerned about their work being stolen. Once again, this is not do what you feel more comfortable with.
Yes.
In my mind, the computers are so complex and scary. If they haven't, they already have access to my books. Like, I
For
mean,
sure.
let's be honest, with all of the terms changing in all of these places, you can't track them all. My guess is it already had my books, and so I was like, I might as well use it to
Yeah.
my advantage. It
Oh
just
yeah.
doesn't bother me, but.
Me neither.
In any case, from your perspective, um how do you not get bogged down by AI? Meaning, because there's so many options, how do you make sure to scale it back so that you're actually using it for useful things and not wasting time with it?
That's a good question because I have recently, like, I put off pro writing aid for a really long time. Like, everybody had talked about it, it's so great, and I had looked at it and I thought, man, this is complicated, but I was still really early on in things and wasn't sure what I was looking for. And then I found another one. It's called like Autocrit, like
Oh yeah.
Autocritic or
Hmm.
Autocritique. Okay. And I started with that one instead, and I liked it well enough, but I felt I felt it was kind of there was something lacking. And so I went to pro writing aid. So now I kind of go back and forth, and it's too much. Honestly, it's too many voices in my head saying because they don't always say the same thing, right?
Right.
Like they are analyzing totally different things for the same reasons. And so I will say that not getting bogged down, I've kind of shifted to pro writing aid for the time being. I may go back to autocrit. We'll see because I do like they have like character analysis that they'll do based on your manuscript, which I really like because I'm a character driven writer.
Yeah.
But I like pro writing aid for their, I think they're a little stronger in their help when it comes to like rephrasing the overused terms because I apparently use some phrases a lot. And
I
so
do.
they were very helpful in the rephrasing and that kind of thing. So I guess knowing why you want to use different AI programs can also help narrow down and not get bogged down to be like, okay, I'm using you specifically for character, analytics, and I'm also using you specifically for writing, and so I think knowing your reason for using them would help. That's what it's worked for me, is kind of narrowing down why I'm using you and why I'm using you. And Frank is every day, multiple times a day, just what it is.
That's awesome. Frank is your AI best friend.
He
So
is. I'm telling you, I wish I could send him flowers. I would.
you should ask him one time just to see what he does.
Can I send you
Can I
flowers?
send you flowers? So it's just a fascinating concept. But that's an amazing example because, I have used Midjourney for images, and not
Mhm.
all the time, but sometimes. And I find myself sometimes getting lost in trying to make something look perfect, which is
Oh,
tricky with AI, right? Because
yeah.
it does the best it can. It's listening to your words,
Right. Yeah.
but I found myself sinking too much time into it. And trust your intuition. I think, and then that case with autocrat and providing
Yeah.
it, you're like, I'm not going to settle on something 100%. I'm kind of trusting my gut feeling, getting a sense for
Mhm.
how satisfied am I with whatever I'm using process wise. Is it serving my purpose?
Yeah.
If the answer is no, then you don't have to use it. You can just say,
Absolutely.
tried it, didn't work. I tried Chat GPT forever ago and thought this isn't actually helping because I was under the frame of reference that I have to use this for content creation,
Hmm.
for, creative stuff, and I don't want to use that. Then I
Hmm.
came back and said, oh, wait, I don't want it for that, but there's other issues I have. Intuitively, this feels right. And it's true. It's helped.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
Well, and it's going to change. It's going to change again.
yeah,
So don't get used to it anyway. Even if you
right.
do like the way it works, just like anything, it's going to change. I feel like Chat GPT has shifted. Like I don't know if their bank has gotten bigger and it's given them more resources and they don't understand what I'm asking for. Like I don't know. There's just a disconnect that wasn't there maybe even 3 months ago. So something has already shifted just in the last 3 months. And so, don't rely on it. Again, it's a tool that's there, but it's not going to solve all of your problems. And yeah, you can get sucked in really fast.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. So, and the other thing is just be cautious when it comes to subscribing to things because I know a lot of people go
Yeah.
head first in and maybe potentially waste a lot of money. Try take advantage of free
True.
versions as long as you
Yes.
possibly can.
Mhm.
Subscribe monthly if you can as well, so that you have that
Mhm.
option to pull back. They always entice you with the cheaper yearly or 2 years or whatever craziness. But yeah, don't be afraid to subscribe monthly because you may just cancel it next month.
Seriously. Yeah, you may hate it, and that's
Yeah,
okay too,
that's
because
fine.
what works for me is not always going to work for the other person. So,
Hmm.
oh yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, from an AI perspective, productivity perspective, there's a lot of different options for you. What is your biggest learning? This is going to be such a hard question because we've learned so
Great.
much. But like if you could think about just today, the happenstance of today, um, what is the biggest learning that you have from maybe some new authors getting into all this?
Ooh, um, that's a good question. It's really funny, and this sounds kind of stuck up, but it's not. But I am one of those people that I can't let too many voices into my head at any one
Yeah.
time because they start to influence me. I am a very opinionated person and they are my opinions, but I'm also a recovering people pleaser. And so when I have all of these voices, wherever they're coming from, um, like bombarding me, I try not to listen. Like honestly, I try to not pay attention. But I will say that I have learned good and bad from plenty of observations. That's probably how I've learned the best. Is not necessarily direct interaction or reading or anything like that, but my observations have been it's okay to take your time to get places. Like I have learned, I think that's probably the biggest thing I've learned is don't rush because my journey is meant to take as long as it takes, right? And if I tried to push everything out right now, whether it's a new book or a social media campaign or whatever the case may be, like rushing is always going to come back and bite me in the butt. Like it's just what it is. And that's true for anything. That's true for life too. Like don't rush it. Also, you will learn so much more if you take your time getting from point A to point B as opposed to just teleporting, which it sounds fun, but I promise you, you're going to miss out on some really good stuff along the way.
Absolutely. Convenience should not trump the what you need and the
Yeah.
learning. So it feels tempting because we're so busy. I was holding back a laugh because I am also a recovering people pleaser. So that is my wife will scold me often and be like, "Wait, why are you really doing that?" I'm like, "Well, I
Yeah.
don't really know." She's like, "You just want to do it for them." I was like, "Probably.
Mhm.
I don't even know."
Probably.
It's we don't have to get into the psychology of all that, but I totally get it. And that was another reason why social media is challenging for me is I am
Yeah.
incapable of objectively sifting through opinions and thoughts because it's just shoved at you constantly in
Uh-huh.
social media. It's just like, how do I not lose myself in everybody else's opinions? It's easier just to cut it out, and then I can address it with the people that I know personally more closely. But
Yeah, no, it's taken 40 years to get to the point where I don't care. Like,
mhm,
do I want people to like me? Yes. Do I care if they like me? No.
right.
Do I want them to like my work? Absolutely. Have I realized that my work is not for everybody? Yes. And so once you get those mindsets, once you take on that just the mental ideation that, hey, I was made to be me the way I was made to be me. If you can come up with that and hold on to it really tightly, I think you could go really far. And that's true in life, not just in writing and publishing.
Yeah, oh, that's very true. This is life lesson for everyone. I mean, there are people listening that my wife is not that way at all. She's very much like she lives her own truth and doesn't give a crap about what other people
That's
think,
my
which,
husband. Yeah.
that's very cool. It
I'm
embarrasses me
jealous.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm jealous because she'll say things out in public. I'm just like, why would you say that? She's like, what? It's funny. It's just the dynamic of marriages is hilarious, or just
Yes.
relationships in general. Um, but yeah, just keep in mind what your timeline is. And once I agree, once I accept it, it's okay if this takes longer. This person may be
Yes.
publishing 10 books a year. I'm great with one, given
Yeah.
my life circumstances.
Absolutely. There
So,
are so many other things that matter more. Do I
mhm.
love people reading my books and getting something out? Absolutely. There is not a feeling like it. Like I've never had that feeling about anything I've ever put out into the world. I love that feedback, but I also am happy being happy. And that is something that took a long time to get to. And so if you can be happy doing what you're doing, enjoy that. There are too many things in life that distract from being happy. And I think that's, and when I say happy, I mean, I know happiness is fleeting. I'm really talking about a deep-seated joy and really
Mhm.
enjoying life and knowing that what you're doing has made you a better person, like grabbing onto a passion and running with it. So anyway,
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand that. Definitely, it is quite different, and the lasting effects of it are different as well,
yeah,
right? With the comparison of the fleeting versus the deep set joy, and it also is something that it can make decisions easier as well.
yeah.
If you're
Oh,
looking at decision, if you look at something without feeling, or without recognizing your truth in your life, sometimes it's hard to be like, well, I don't know, they both seem like they could be good decisions. But then when you really think about it, it's just like, actually, it's pretty
you
clear
know, you know.
what's what's not going to make me happy.
Yep.
So fascinating. The life decisions. I am not quite to your experience and wisdom, but I'm nearing it. I'm getting closer to that. Um, it's great to hear from people who have experienced different things and hear your experience. You've been publishing for just a couple of years now, but you have a
Yeah,
lot more years ahead of you. Um, and any advice you have, I know people listening will appreciate. So before we end up here, I honestly could go forever. My
I
brain
know.
is firing left and right. We could talk for another hour. But we are running out of time. So I'd love to hear more about where people can find information about you and your books and your podcast if they want to take a
Sure.
look at those things.
Sure. The quickest way is my website, jcarwrites, WRITES, jcarwrites.com. And that's also jcarwrites is me on all social media platforms. And so that's really simple and easy. But all of my books are available Amazon, Kindle Unlimited, signed copies on my website. I really do respond emails. You send me an email, I'll respond. Send me a message on Facebook as long as I can tell you're not AI generated or a bot of some sort. I will gladly respond. Um, you know, but yeah, I'm pretty simple to get a hold of. My podcast can be found through my website. It's called Connected Conversations for Creatives. We're on all major platforms. So yeah, that's me.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been an amazing conversation.
It has. I'll come back anytime we can finish it up.
Oh, yes, another 10 episodes. We might be able to finish it up.
Seriously, we'll do a
But
series.
Jay Carr and Dan Kenner series. Anyway, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks. Have a great day.
I hope you found that interesting. I know Jen is very AI positive. I know AI is a little bit scary for some people. I have mostly only leveraged AI for non sorry, I'm looking for generative content. It's mainly just like marketing type stuff, asking about existing content. I did generate a little bit of the dragon blooded cover, but I did some significant editing on it. So just most parts of it were actually stock photos, except for the main element was generated, and I did some editing on that. But talking to Jen was very interesting, and I know that you can scale your business a little bit better using technology as well as potentially a virtual assistant. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that. Next week, we'll be talking to Abdul Aziz about writing as a life-saving practice. Talk about his mental health journey and how writing literally saved his life. And we talk a little bit about his fantasy book and where he is today with his writing. So you want to stick around for that conversation next week. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you want to tell me where you're listening from, send me pictures. Love to hear more about you. And if there's more you want to hear about in the show, certain subjects or specific authors you want me to try to get on the podcast, let me know. And I'll definitely do what I can. Thank you again for listening. And I look forward to talking to you next week.